I mean, the first time we did one of those tours, the hotel GM was like, "Wait, you want to go into the kitchen?" And they're like, "Yes." We want to know exactly what goes into every bite of food that this player eats while they're here.
You got to spill now who the biggest diva team was. For many months now, ever since the World Cup draw in December, teams have been trying to negotiate where they'll be based for the entirety of their World Cup stay, whether it's 3 games during the group or going all the way to the final. They will need somewhere to stay, somewhere to live, somewhere to train. So there have been these FIFA-approved team base camps consisting of sort of a hotel and accommodation plus a training facility with very stringent rules. And ever since December, teams have been trying to bid for those, set their preferences for those, and at the same time, those facilities setting their preferences. And there's been so many things to take into account, like where your games are being played, where you're being situated. So originally, there were about 70 team base camps that FIFA approved. And we're going to have to do like a shout out to the rejects who didn't get any teams. Pour one out for Boise, Idaho, Birmingham, Alabama, Orlando, Detroit, and my college town, State College, Pennsylvania. Shout out. I affectionately call them rejects. It's, again, a matter of convenience where you're most likely to be comfortable, quiet, maybe isolated a little bit from some of the noise. And, you know, if you're playing cross-country matches, cross-border matches, where are you going to be most accessible to airports, transport, etc.? 48 base camps. I won't name them all, but I'll shout out some. Austria and Qatar really knew what they were doing, staying in Santa Barbara, California. You've got about 5 in Mexico and only 1 in Canada, Panama, north of Toronto in Ontario. You've got some other quirky ones like Bosnia and Herzegovina in Salt Lake City, Utah. Some of the bigger teams have done the, escape to a more quiet area. You got Spain in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you've got Iraq in West Virginia. North Carolina was popular. You got Scotland, Norway, and Germany in North Carolina. But we got to shout out, I think, the most popular area, and that's the Kansas City area, which bagged not just Algeria, but 3 big guns, England, Netherlands, and Argentina. For England, that seemed a bit odd because 2 of their games are in the Northeast. I suppose they're also thinking about the next stages where they might later play, even in Mexico and places like that. So I wanted to get a sense of what went into this team-based camp decision and what it's all about. It turns out that Sweden is based in Frisco, Texas, a city of its own regard. I suppose you could call it a Dallas suburb, but it's technically its own city. And Frisco is an interesting city because it is one of the fastest growing cities in America. It was the fastest growing city in America in 2017. Its population is about 250,000, and that population has grown almost 25% since the 2020 census. It's really thriving. It's attracted a lot of industry, including a lot of sports. It's the headquarters of the Dallas Cowboys, and they've nicknamed themselves Sports City USA. So I connected with 2 guests today from Frisco government. Josh Dill, who's the Assistant Executive Director at Visit Frisco, which is the Frisco Tourism Board, and the Senior Vice President and Chief Growth Officer of the Frisco Economic Development Corporation, Gloria Salinas. And so we got into it all. We got into this whole speed dating system of teams and base camps and how Sweden landed there. And are going to be dealing with some traffic and hot temperatures. We got into some of the tourism aspects and the economic aspects and what Frisco is looking for out of this World Cup. So without further ado, here is my chat with Gloria and Josh. Well, thank you both so much for being here. As I was saying before, I love the setup and the scarves.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're getting all into the soccer spirit here.
Do you mind just both kind of introducing yourselves and just briefly telling us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, go ahead, Gloria.
Sure, I'm happy to kick us off. I'm Gloria Salinas. I'm Senior Vice President, Chief Growth Officer at the Frisco Economic Development Corporation. helping lead a national, international corporate recruitment strategy, bringing new business into the city of Frisco, and also working to expand our local businesses and grow the local economy here.
All right, I'm Josh Dill. I'm the Assistant Executive Director at Visit Frisco, so the tourism side of things. Obviously, economic development and tourism work closely together, and that's very true here in Frisco. But I came over here, I started as the Director of Sports and Events, so I've been working on World Cup within the region for the last 10 years.
I'm excited to get into all of that. It's great to meet you both, but I guess we should start with the broader question for those who aren't kind of that clued into Texas geography. Where is Frisco? Are you technically part of Dallas?
I think we're part of Dallas when we want to be. We're part of the DFW region. We're on the northern side. We're just straight north of Dallas, so about 25 minutes from both airports, but kind of on the northeast side of the DFW Metroplex. Great.
So I keep seeing stories about Frisco's population expansion in recent years, right? What's driving that? I'm kind of, and we'll get into the sports side of it, I'm sure, but it's like a chicken and egg thing. Like, what came first? Did the people come first, or the sports came first? Or what's going on over there?
Yeah, I guess, from a high level, what I will say is there's a great quality of life in the city of Frisco. It attracts families, corporates, businesses, to Josh's point, tourism. The quality of life was really built around kind of the sports opportunities, and I would also say our education system. So we attract a lot of families because of our great public education school system. We're a small school model and the largest A-rated school district in the state of Texas, so one of the best school districts in the state, which brings a lot of families, also a lot of companies and corporates who want to be near that talent and have access to that talent. But more importantly, I think just like my favorite thing about Frisco is how beautiful the community is. It's extremely walkable. There are a lot of green spaces, outdoor parks, hike and bike trails. So just from a living perspective, I think people feel the proximity to the city of Dallas. You're close enough to a major metropolitan area, but you still have a really nice kind of small, tight-knit community where you can stretch out and do a lot of really cool things.
What are the main industries that are booming there right now?
So major industry here today is financial services. Again, our proximity to Dallas, we are a tech talent corridor for North Texas. We're home to a large tech workforce, software engineers and developers, as well as financial executives. The region, the Dallas-Fort Worth region, is home to 22 Fortune 500 headquarter operations. And so a lot of that talent lives in Frisco, works across the region, and also within the community. Another large industry for us, I mentioned, financial services. I would also say technology, corporate innovation. There are 15 corporate innovation R&D centers in the city of Frisco. Large merger acquisition firms. The startup ecosystem is huge. Here we mentioned kind of the sports environment, so sports technology, wearables, embeddables that are also dual-use technologies for medical and healthcare purposes are really big here in the community. The last one I would say would be...
Hang on. We lost our video.
Yeah.
Hang on.
You were talking about the wearables and the crossover with medical.
Yeah, so Frisco is home to a large tech workforce, a large financial services workforce, and so the companies that are here today are responding to that talent. We're home to a lot of software technology engineers, developers. Our sports technology, healthcare, wearables, embeddables are big. Obviously, financial services firms, we're home to many of those. And I think the last category would be food and beverage. So we're home to a lot of corporate headquarters of food and beverage, Ruiz Foods, Keurig, Dr. Pepper. And so there's a lot of growth within those industry segments.
And then sports, of course, right? Tell me about Sports City USA. That's what you guys are known as?
Yeah, it's an initiative that we started over 9 years ago, and we started with the idea of which city in the U.S. or in North America had representation from all of the 5 major leagues within their jurisdictional boundaries. So we considered that if their headquarters, their practice facility, or their playing facility was there. And when we did that research, we realized we were the only ones. Obviously LA and Chicago have a lot of teams, but they're all in different suburbs and other things. And so we just felt like we were going to plant our flag in the ground and say we're going to be Sports City USA. But it's grown from that. It's grown to include the tech and innovation side of things, sports medicine. I kind of talk about it. It's like a moth to a flame. We've got a great young population who's sports crazy. We've got a lot of former athletes that live in the community. And then we've got these great teams who live here and operate here. And so it just creates that effect where companies want to be close by. And it's great for visitation. Obviously, these venues are great to put big events in as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think, going back to the quality of life, Frisco's home to a lot of retired professional athletes. In fact, there's over 3,000 retired professional athletes that live within Collin County. Most of those reside in Frisco. I think after, you retire from professional sports, you're looking for a great quality of life and a nice place to live, but also still close to those teams and that environment, the investments in technology. So that's exciting as well, too.
Think about that when I retire from sports.
Yeah.
No, are you guys Cowboys fans? Is that like a requirement?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. I was born and raised here in Dallas, so I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan from the beginning. I always tell people my story is I remember in the 90s when we won back-to-back championships, and as a kid, I was able to go to those parades, and so there's definitely, in addition to the Cowboys, the Stars won a Stanley Cup in the 90s, which I remember as well, too, and the Mavericks have won a championship, and so we've got really, really phenomenal professional sports teams in the region.
I was told when we were setting up this call to ask about the Cowboys Club and what goes down there. Do you have any insight for me?
Sure, absolutely. So, the Cowboys Club is a part of the Dallas Cowboys headquarters practice facility and their operations at the Star. That project was a public-private partnership with the city of Frisco, helping support on the land and the development of that project. And Cowboys Club is a private membership club where athletes, players, the coaches, and folks who will pay for memberships there. A lot of our deal making on the technology side happens in that club. Again, you have high net wealth professional athletes who are looking to invest dollars in whether it's sports technology or kind of dual use technology and expand their portfolio. And so it's a great place for innovators, venture capital, private equity to really pitch and position for those investments. And so it's a really great anchor in our innovation ecosystem in Frisco.
Gloria, for you, I just having browsed your bio, I noticed that you've worked around Texas, including Odessa, which is that's Friday Night Lights, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, Friday Night Lights. Yeah, West Texas.
What's different for you about working in Frisco?
Frisco is, a really great city in that it's extremely progressive. I would say the best thing about working here is the public-private partnerships. They do it like no one else in the state, and actually we're, nationally recognized for a lot of our public-private partnerships. You were just talking about the Cowboys. We have a lot of professional sports teams that come down here to study Frisco's, sports ecosystem, the public-private partnerships, how we've activated, it's not just the Dallas Cowboys headquarters and practice facility, but there is an open park and plaza that's open to the public. There's restaurant, retail, there's, office towers around it, and it's really this live, work, play concept. And so I would say, from my time in economic development, I've worked for, you mentioned kind of small rural cities to, city of Dallas, a larger, big city. Frisco is the perfect size city that removes a lot of bureaucratic red tape. Partnerships are at the table, and we move at the speed of business. And I think, for me and Josh, when you're sitting on the government side of the table, it's really nice to be able to leverage that speed to market, that partnership. The city's very progressive and innovative way of doing business is really exciting and makes the job a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say I was with Tom Walker, the CFO of the Cowboys, the other day, and someone asked me that question, what makes Frisco so great? And I talked about the partnerships and all this stuff, and he goes, Josh, that was a long-winded way of saying in Frisco, it's not about me, it's about we. And I was like, that's a great way to sum it up, Tom.
Yeah. Josh, for you, how do sports play into tourism for Frisco?
Yeah, I mean, sports is an interesting category within tourism. Obviously, youth sports is a massive industry. It's something that's very, recession proof. People will cut out, vacations and business trips and other things, but they don't cut out the opportunity to go to sporting events. And I always lean back on the Nelson Mandela quote about how sports unifies things like few other things can, right? To paraphrase there. But it's become a huge part of our ecosystem. Obviously, it starts with a venue on the sports tourism side. So we have really, really great world-class venues through these public-private partnerships. And then it's not just the venue. We have those teams are operating those venues. So we have true partners that say, we definitely want to host this type of event. And then my team can go out and say, we'll find the right event, we'll bring it to you, we'll make sure it's good for the city, good for the venue. It's very, very advantageous for the city. And I will say sports is I call it the spray foam insulation of tourism, because you have great corporate business, high-rated business and things like that, but all the spaces that need to be filled in, sports can usually fill them in.
I do want to talk a little bit about, you're going to be hosting Sweden, right? It's official for the World Cup. I forgot to wear yellow today. Okay, so they're going to be at the home of FC Dallas, right? I'm just curious about how that all came together. What was sort of the process? Were you kind of bidding for Sweden? Was Sweden bidding for you? How did that all kind of pan out?
It's a very long process. Obviously, there were like 70 base camp sites selected early on. And we didn't really get details into how all of that was going to come about until, last year, really. We knew that once the teams qualified, they were going to have preference sheets. They were all kind of taking tours. We hosted a ton of delegations here that were looking here. But that first round of qualifiers, they all put preference sheets together. I know Frisco was listed very high on a number of them, behind Kansas City. And Kansas City gobbled up a bunch of those really big teams like the Netherlands and Argentina, which were both here looking. But one of the things that I think that was a little bit difficult for other countries to wrap their head around was the heat in Texas in June and July. But we knew that there was these late qualifiers, obviously largest field ever. And so we knew that they were not going to have the time to really go in and evaluate a base camp. And so it was easy to say, hey, the winner of this UEFA... Oh, hang on. Can you hit the power button one more time? I don't know.
There we go.
It's like we're having an advertisement break with Summit.
Yeah, right. Obviously, we knew that those late qualifiers, it was just easier for them to know exactly what pathway they were going to play into. We really lucked out with Sweden. Obviously, we were really championing, Sweden or Poland, one of those teams. We knew they would bring some big interest. Obviously, there's heavy investment from the country of Sweden, into American businesses and things like that. So it felt like a really good match, but we had to wait until the end of March to figure out who was coming.
Yeah, I'm curious as to kind of how all these teams were thinking about travel, because there's going to be so much travel for a lot of these teams, right? Including crossing the border to Mexico and Canada. I think Sweden play their first game in Mexico, and then they'll be coming up to Texas. So, how much do you think that played it? When you were showing delegations around, because I think like England play in Dallas. I'm English. They play in Dallas, but they chose to be in Kansas City, right, to be a bit, I guess, closer to other parts of the country. Did that come into the thinking for a lot of teams?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, the number one question I got asked is who's going to be our base camp? Who's going to be our base camp all around town? I definitely think that obviously the draw was very important. And since that happened so late, that kind of gave people at least the knowledge of where they're going to be playing those group stage matches. And so they were trying to do something that was economical to be able to get, obviously there was really East Coast, Central, and West Coast kind of pods. But the travel is definitely something they're thinking about. But in most cases with these delegations, this is the biggest thing that their country is involved in. And so in a lot of cases, the money isn't the issue. They'll go wherever they need to go, wherever they feel like they can do their best to be on the largest stage.
Does FIFA require certain things from the base camps, from the training facilities?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, security first and foremost. We have a large facility, and I think that was something that FIFA thought would be attractive. But then when you look at it from an operational standpoint, they love the small training sites, very controllable. We have some amazing things to offer, like our National Soccer Hall of Fame, which is actually built right above the locker rooms that they'll be using. So we kind of have to work through some things there. But yeah, FC Dallas had to sign a base camp agreement. Some of the things that are required is that each delegation is going to do some sort of cultural event or some sort of event within the community that they're based in. And so we're looking forward to having Sweden kind of interact with some of our local residents and businesses while they're here.
Know what that's going to be, that cultural event?
Well, we had some grand ideas with Sweden being such a late qualifier. It's going to end up being basically an open practice for Sweden. Where they're going to allow people to come in and interact. We're hoping that we have some special guests there and that people will be able to take pictures with some of the players. But at the same time, they're getting ready for their biggest moment. So we don't want to tax them too much, but we really want them in the community.
Are there any challenges? You talked about the heat earlier. What do you think the biggest challenges are for a European team like Sweden or the Czech Republic, which are also going to be in Texas, coming to a place like Texas where I was just in Stockholm in January and for the first time, and it's a beautiful kind of historic walkable city. Texas is not that walkable, right? It's hot, like you said. What are the kind of the biggest challenges that they might face when they get there?
I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, first and foremost, I think it's going to be the heat. We're waiting to kind of figure out our training schedule because obviously you're going to want to be training in the morning or late in the afternoon. And then I think it's just, there's going to be some cultural differences. I think the sentiment that we've heard both from people who are planning to travel and the teams is they're excited about experiencing a big U.S. kind of event. U.S. takes sporting events to a totally different level. I mean, soccer in Europe is incredible, but the spectacle that comes along, all of the fan fests and things like that come with how we do Super Bowls and our version of the World Cup, I think is going to be a little bit of a shock to some, but I think it's hopefully going to create a great environment.
Was the same true with the accommodation where the teams will be staying? Was it a similar kind of bidding process?
Yeah, it's the hotel piece all around with FIFA has been in process for years. And there's been a lot of things that have changed throughout the time. One of the big things when we were touring teams around is they wanted to go into the kitchen. They wanted access to the kitchen. They didn't want to talk to the chef. They wanted to know that they could actually go in there and prepare their own meals, which is not something that is usually allowed by American hotels, that's for sure. So they came to us with really interesting questions like, can you provide fresh squeezed orange juice and fresh fruit? And we're like, yes. And they're like, no. We're not just saying it says it's fresh. We want to bring in the fruit on a truck and make our own things here. And so a lot of really interesting dynamics go into hosting something of this level.
But that was FIFA saying that, or that was the Swedish team?
That was some of the delegations. Several delegations when they toured the hotel were like asking. I mean, the first time we did one of those tours, the hotel GM was like, "Wait, you want to go into the kitchen?" And they're like, "Yes." We want to know exactly what goes into every bite of food that this player eats while they're here.
You got to spill now who the biggest diva team was.
It was interesting. Obviously, Saudi Arabia chose Austin, but they were here and they were saying, well, we just don't know about the heat. And I'm like, wow, you're one of the few that I didn't think would have a problem with the heat. But no, everybody was great. I mean, they were all different sizes. We had groups that came in with 10 folks, wanted to meet with our police department, talk about security. And we had some large delegations that sent 2 people and said, I'm just here to check these boxes, take these pictures, and I'm on to the next city.
Right. Just last thing on Sweden, I see that is there a Swedish player that plays for FC Dallas?
Absolutely. Herman Johansson plays for FC Dallas. And so I know the FC Dallas group, Dan Hunt and Jimmy and the folks that I meet with all the time, they were really, really rooting for Sweden to be in there because of that connection with their player.
He'll be like kind of an ambassador for the rest
Absolutely.
of the team. When do they arrive?
We're still getting details. Obviously, it's an ever-shifting thing. We do think that it's going to be somewhere around June 5th or 6th is when the team's going to come in. There's going to be an advanced team that comes in before that. But we're coming up on it pretty quick.
Yeah, exciting. What do Frisco residents, how do they feel about the World Cup coming? I mean, I suppose there is excitement, but people also have their everyday lives to get on with, and traffic is already pretty tough in Texas, right? So what are the residents saying?
I think we have a good group of residents that's really excited. I mean, I talk to other destination marketing organizations across the country, and there's talk about over tourism and people pushing back against residents pushing back against tourists. I have to say we're blessed here in Frisco. I think our residents really understand not only the economic benefit that they get, but just the access, that quality of life that Gloria was referencing. They get to be really, really close to these big events, including something like the Academy of Country Music Awards. You know, that was in Frisco for the last 3 years. And it's only happens because of the relationship with the Cowboys and that venue. And I just don't think that, you know, you're not going to please everybody all the time, but I think we've done a good job of trying to expel the benefits of tourism. One of our recent studies shows that tourism activity in Frisco saves the average property owner about $2,500 on their taxes. So we like to lead with that because people love saving money.
Yeah, I think to Josh's point too, there's been a lot of communication. I think, you know, the city of Frisco, the North Texas delegation have been communicating with the region for a long time that this was coming. There were moments of celebration, you know, when we knew that we would be a part of it, and I think the residents were excited. But I think we've done a really good job of briefing, preparing. And then the other big thing is this is once every so many years, right? We don't have this opportunity every year to host a World Cup or a global event.
All you gotta do is hold down that
Break.
power button just a minute.
Or Panasonic commercial.
Yeah. There you go.
Nice.
Okay.
That was quick
Yeah,
this
so
time.
I was just going to say, you know, I think our residents also understand that this is a once in very many years opportunity. It doesn't come around every year. And so it's excited to be a part of it when it does land and really experience all of the fanfare and the excitement with it.
Do you get a sense that local businesses are also wondering how they can get involved, whether they can get involved as vendors at FanFest or whatever it is? What do you kind of see as the short-term economic impact while people are in town?
Sure. I mean, we're blessed that we have a great relationship with our Chamber of Commerce. The Frisco Chamber is a great partner for us. We've had 2 large-scale events to talk to business owners about what does the World Cup mean, and that's from, you know, a mom-and-pop business all the way up to these larger employers here. There was a ton of interest in being a part of the vendor program. Obviously, there's a lot of hurdles to jump through with that. We tried to communicate those, tell them when there's opportunities. We had several businesses in Frisco bid on opportunities directly with FIFA. But the other thing that our council and mayor kind of charged us with is to create a meaningful experience in Frisco outside of the base camp for residents and businesses to take part in. And that's why we're working with FC Dallas on our soccer celebration, which is one of the most, I think, aggressive, or maybe aggressive is not the right word, but the aspirational watch parties that's not an official FIFA watch party. So we're showing 97 of 104 matches outside in front of our city hall. You know, we're hoping that we can get up to about 2,000 folks there, but local businesses have jumped in to sponsor that because you can't conflict with the commercial affiliates with FIFA. So I think it's been really intentional to make sure that everyone can experience it in the way they want to, and whenever it leaves here, we can go, wow, look at what took place here and what the benefits were.
Yeah, it all sounds very complex to organize. A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it's I have all city departments on a call once a month. I have calls with the local organizing committee. You know, I told somebody the other day, in Texas, we know all about riding bulls. You know, working with FIFA is like riding a bull, but instead of 8 seconds, it's been 8 years. So
Yeah, that's a long bull ride. A report came out very recently, I think, that hotels in host cities across the U.S. are not really seeing the boom that they thought that they would be seeing. And we've seen the issues, ticket prices, immigration, you know, fears of ICE, things like that, visa bans, geopolitics. You know, first of all, are you seeing the same in your hotels in the area? And second of all, how do you counter that when the narrative that people are seeing around the world is like, stay out, you're not welcome?
Sure. We're definitely monitoring it closely. We've been, like I said, working on the hotel piece of this for a very long time. FIFA came in and blocked a lot of things and had intentions of saying, we're going to kind of help place these people there. And I think they were a little later to getting that stood up. And so a lot of these commercial affiliates and other entities that are booking blocks went ahead and did it without them. And so we've tried to maintain with our hotels at least that the communication is open. We're watching all of the data. We're trying to keep you up to date. I think a lot of folks in the area went, well, we're going to go really high with rates because there's going to be a crazy demand. And then, things shift. And so we're just trying to make sure our hotels are in the best position to make the best decision for their hotel. This is not, singular to FIFA. These mega events, it's hard to wrap your arms around really where people stay and all the different groups that are involved. But we're just trying to keep them up to date and do the best we can. The problem is those mega events displace regular business. So a lot of business that would have been here may have gone to a non-FIFA city. I'm sure Denver and Chicago are probably their convention centers are eating this up because everywhere else is really busy. Interested to see how that displacement affects the entire landscape. But we are starting to see upticks. And I think, there's still going to be, 9 sold out matches here. Obviously, Argentina being here for 2 games, Japan being here for 2 games, those folks will stay longer. So I'm still cautiously optimistic that it'll turn out to be a really great summer on the hotel front.
You have a sense of whether you'll be getting mostly domestic or international visitors? It's funny because we were talking about Sweden. I said I was in Sweden in January, and that was when all the Greenland stuff was happening. And people were mad. People were like, we're not going to support the US at this time if they're attacking kind of our country. So are you kind of prepping for more domestic visitors at the moment?
I think from the early research that we saw, it's probably skewing a little bit more domestic. And I think it's, like you said, geopolitical factors. I think the ticket prices, even how they were rolled out, there were times where it looked like an upper level ticket at AT&T Stadium was $2,500. And then with this last ticket release, there were lower level tickets available for around $500. So I think people were waiting to see not just how, the international landscape is shaping up, but I think they were more concerned with those ticket prices. So I think it'll skew more domestic, but I think you're still going to see somewhere around 40% international.
Before this call, I did check Frisco hotel prices for the night of England-Croatia, and it's not too bad, actually. I was expecting quite a bit, but it looks pretty reasonable for now. Is that because, do you think people are maybe trying to stay in Arlington? What benefit would someone staying in Frisco be for someone?
Yeah, we've been watching that. And obviously in all the major cities, some of the downtown, real close to the venues, there was a lot of booking, restrictions. You had to have multi-night stays. You had very high rates. And so the outer rings around those cities, we're seeing a lot more of the pickup. But as those booking restrictions have gotten lifted, it's shifting, closer to the venue. I think what we offer in Frisco is, yes, we say we're just a kick away, and we have our base camp and our soccer celebration, but we're a safe, family-friendly destination, one of the safest cities in the U.S. We have a lot of family-friendly attractions. And if you're coming, especially internationally, and you're saying, I want to see not just soccer, which I know really well, or football, I want to see American football, I want to see baseball, I want to see those types of things happening, we have that right in our backyard. So if you're looking for that true all-American experience where it's safe, I think Frisco has that to offer.
How's the drive from Frisco to AT&T, or what's the best way to get there?
It's to use GPS, use Waze. That's what I usually do. We have to go to the stadium for meetings. Depending on traffic, it can be anywhere from 40 minutes to upwards over an hour. Obviously this will be unlike anything we've experienced. And so the traffic and parking there's a big comprehensive plan for that. But we're definitely seeing, we've been hearing things that, just Uber rides from downtown Dallas to Arlington could be $200. So, public transportation is going to have to be activated. And luckily our city, which doesn't have the rail coming to it, we found some really unique ways to attach ourselves to the rail to make it easy for those people to get, to Plano and then get into Frisco.
Okay. When this is all done, when the World Cup finishes, when England's lifted the trophy and everyone's left, what do you hope that the World Cup did for Frisco? I mean, economically speaking, are you hoping for a long-lasting effect, and how so?
I think from the economic side, we're hoping to see obviously an incremental increase in sales tax, hotel occupancy tax, those types of things. That's what we always look at. We're looking at this as an opportunity to further elevate the recognition of Frisco as a destination, as a place to move your business. This kind of puts us on that world stage, and we're a fast-growing city here in the U.S., and I think we've garnered a lot of attention, but we want to even grow that on the international stage. So I hope that people will look back and go, wow, we were a part of something great here. I have a great impression of Frisco. And then what I hope new cameras, man.
We were in the home stretch.
Yeah.
There we are.
I was going to say, I hope that FIFA leaves with a really good impression of how much Frisco worked to elevate the World Cup in our market, because obviously the U.S. is bidding on the 2031 Women's World Cup, and with our investment in Toyota Stadium, it's going to be one of the premier soccer-focused facilities, I think, in the U.S., maybe even in the world. And so I think we will be able to host group stage matches all the way up to quarterfinal matches in Frisco in 31. And so we're always looking ahead. We've got a PGA championship next year, but we're already looking at that 31 Women's World Cup.
Yeah, and I think, for the business environment, FIFA puts Frisco on a global stage and provides some recognition of where we're located, our strategic location, the advantages, the community. We'll be able to showcase that, across the globe and create awareness just about everything that's going on here. And I just echo Josh and say, we're also hosting the Men's PGA Championship next summer in 2027. So there's two back-to-back, world stage global events that are kind of taking place here in Frisco. The Men's Championship next year will be the first time that the Men's PGA Championship is played in North Texas in over 60 years. It'll draw about 200,000 attendees, and it has a projected $100 million economic impact across the region. And so I think, these two events really back to back, we will see this long-term sustained awareness of Frisco as Sports City USA.
One last thing I should ask is, what are your top spots where visitors should go eat? Because I was speaking to Kansas City folks a few weeks ago, and they really hyped up their barbecue. So I felt like I should give Texas barbecue a moment to shine as well.
Absolutely. I'm friends with Kathy Nelson, who runs Visit KC and has been on the sports commission side up there. And so we kind of have a friendly rivalry about our barbecue. I think Texas barbecue is about as good as it comes. Hutchins barbecue here is phenomenal. It's a true Texas experience. Our barbecue sauce has got a little bit more vinegar in it, but the beef rib there is, you don't see beef ribs in a lot of places. It's a brisket on a bone, man. It's so delicious. But we also have, we have a former MLB player, Torrey Hunter, who owns a barbecue joint here as well. Tender Smokehouse, there it is. I treat barbecue kind of a la carte. Torrey Hunter has some of the best beans I've ever had in a barbecue joint. And he's really good at other things, but that beef rib at Hutchins is special.
Yeah, I would say one of my favorite kind of food recommendations is going to be Heritage Table in our Rail District in downtown Frisco. So I think the other really cool thing about Frisco is this farm-to-table concept. So Heritage Table has been recognized across the Dallas region as one of the best places to dine, and it is that true farm-to-table. It is in an old historic vintage home downtown, so you're sitting in the dining room of the home. It's only so many tables per night. It gets booked up very fast, but it is a very nice, intimate kind of farm-to-table experience, and I think that's a really unique dining option, one of my favorites.
And the chef there was nominated for a James Beard Award a few years ago. He's really high quality.
Yeah, it's great food.
You're making me hungry. It's been a while since I was in Dallas, many years. But I'm so mad that I went to this fried chicken place that I can't remember. I don't know what the place was, but I wish I could. I wish I could remember it.
Was it Babe's Chicken?
Maybe it's gonna have to live in my memory because I just don't. Yeah, maybe I'll find out one day. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, either of you?
I would close and just say Frisco is Sports City USA. I think this World Cup event is putting us on that global stage and on that map and really putting our Sports City USA flag in the ground. with the Men's PGA Championship to come in 27. We'll also host it again in 2034. The Women's World Cup in 2031. There will be a series of sporting events. I think we've been known for regional sports, right? Home of the Dallas Cowboys, home of the PGA of America, FC Dallas, Frisco Rough Riders, the home of the Dallas Stars. But we're really excited to be on a global stage with FIFA this year.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to, for people to go and see. If you're wondering how we became Sports City USA, we did a docuseries this last year, and short episodes, 4 to 5 minutes, but it kind of talks about the origin story of where Frisco was 30,000 residents 30 plus years ago to where we are now, and one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. But it's been really smart civic engagement with really smart partners that has built this over time. And we've taken a model of public-private partnership that we've been able to build upon for years. I think that Frisco becomes very, very much a central conversation to anything sports in the future, whether that's business or, human performance, those types of things. So, really proud to be from Frisco and represent Frisco, but, really excited to extend that pride and show it to the world.
Thank you both so much for joining. This was great, and we made it through without another Panasonic ad.
I know, right?
Yeah, thanks
We're
for
probably
having
taking
us.
down the time to do that. So